If my niece was here, she'll say it's Sigma. Do you know what that means? Yeah, I just learned last week. It means cool, right? Does it? And another word she likes to say is skibidi. Are you familiar with that? Yeah, does it mean good or bad? It means bad, right? I thought it would be good. So there's so many nuances in the new generation now that we just kind of need to tap into, which is what we're going to do just now. As marketers, we're faced with one challenge. How do we connect with Gen Zs in Asia? We're answering the question today as we are cracking the Gen Z code, bringing insights, comparisons, and brand best practices from across Asia Pacific. And this session will delve into the minds of young people across the Asia Pacific region with a focus on China and Vietnam. Our speakers will guide you to discovering how we can engage and understand the things that Gen Zs value and help your brand connect with this powerful generation. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please help me in welcoming the founder and CEO of Ylab, Ms. Yuhong Lee. Can we have a round of applause, everyone? Please also give your warm welcome to the consultant, Hakuhodo Consulting Asia Pacific, Mr. Luis Chan. Let's have a round of applause, everyone. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yuhong from Ylab.
And I'm Luis, a consultant from Hakuhodo Consulting Asia Pacific.
Thank you for the invitation from MMA. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to speak and connect with all of you. And before I started the topic, I want to share a little bit more about why we are here and what we are going to share. And you guys just heard the previous great session about how the content world changing so fast. And everybody think that Gen Z now is so different. So there are actually plenty research about the Gen Z. And we want to see it from a different perspective. The faster the world change, the deeper we need to understand the human nature. If you see in these dozens years how much the world have been changed, but in past 2,000 years, the human nature didn't change much. So we need to spend more time to understand deeper, to dive deeper into people's identity and their value. And to understand the Gen Z is not a new species or anything. It's just a stage of life. All of us have been through that stage. So we want to take a perspective from intergenerational research perspective, which means to understand the Gen Z, what's the differences. We also need to understand what's the commonality between Gen Z and Gen Y, right? And what's the differences. That's one thing we're going to share today. And the second thing is actually we observe the development of economy actually is by stages towards a similar direction. So for example, yesterday night I arrived Ho Chi Minh City. I see here it's so prosperous. It's similar to Shanghai. So, and it's echo to our research. The differences between Vietnam people and the Chinese younger generation, what's the commonality, what's the differences. And while in China, now we study a lot about the Japanese Gen Z and the Gen Y. Because it's very clear China younger generation is evolving towards Japan because the economy development stage is closer to 20 years ago Japan. So that's why we are here. Luis representing Hakuhodo. Hakuhodo, you may explain a little bit about the research.
Yep, so right, at Hakuhodo, we use a Japanese philosophy called Seikatsusha. If you translate it loosely, it means consumers, but rather than just looking at purchase attitudes, we look at the people, or in this context, Gen Z, in a holistic manner. So they are not just consumers, but they are also students, they are also office workers, they are also children of some parents, things like that. So it's like a 360-degree angle. And over here, right, we are together with Ylab, we combine our frameworks and methodologies to understand China and 6 ASEAN markets, Gen Zs, in a comprehensive manner.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by Hakuhodo. They have a dedicated team researching the people, like they say, as a full human rather than just a consumer. One facet. They are full facets for 30 years. And at Ylab, we have been dedicated a team, a combine of sociologists, anthropologists, and psychologists, research Chinese people in past 6 years. So we have been through 1980s generation, 90s generation, and now it's over 5 years is one generation, 95, 2000. And so that's where we are. Right now, we are combining our research together to explore beyond Japan and China to actually explore our methodology to understand the Asia 7 countries, the Gen Z, the commonality and the differences. Okay? I want to start to share a little bit about our methodology. I hope this can inspire all of you to see your consumer in an environmental perspective. So this is Ylab's methodology. Right now, we all know the needs changing so fast, but the market research are mostly still focused on needs, right? Like need state is all of us very familiar with, because the social media, now the needs, once we capture needs, before our product launch, the needs changed. That's the differences from before. Before one needs probably last 10 years or 20 years. That's why we need to understand the drive of the needs. Its value define the needs. So how to better understand the value and the identity, the younger generation's identity. So to understand the identity, actually we need to understand the environment. Why? Right now, I believe in Vietnam is a similar situation. Every 5 years, actually it's a new generation because the environment changes so fast. So we say environment shape a generation. So we see the environment from 3 layers. The first layer is the macro layer, which is the ideology, the worldview, and the political economy situation. So for example, in China, like post-1980s, they all aspire Western country. Everything imported is the best. But for the post-90s, they have this national pride. They feel China product is good enough. So I believe in Vietnam is also going similar direction. And the second layer we need to pay attention to is the meso social. For example, social media and their social class and the tier of city where they live also impact how they shape their self-identity and their value. And the inner one is the micro-social. It's what is most intimate to them. It's their family, their parent generation, and their school, their classmates, their teachers. So to understand these 3 layers of environment, and then you can clearly to have an idea how this generation in this country look like.
Yep. So from Hakuhodo Consulting side, we use an integrated AI and human intelligence research methodologies so as to uncover insights. So over here on the left-hand side, AI, we leverage on this tool called QAI. It's a cultural analysis tool that can also analyze advertisements from the perspectives of Gen Zs. At the same time, part of our solutions also include GPT AI Seikashisha, which acts like a chatbot that brands can leverage on. The inputs are actually based on real-life data. And lastly, we have human intelligence. So this is more like your traditional research methodologies by human researchers and consultants. We make use of our Hakuhodo Seikashisha knowledge and survey database, data collected from all over the world into one integrated database. And from there, we retrieve insights such as purchase attitudes, social values, etc., that corroborate whatever analysis we came up with for AI. Oh, sorry. Next. Okay. Yep. So here are our findings. So we conducted research on 7 markets, 6 ASEAN markets plus China, And here are the 7 Gen Z personas we have identified based on Hakuhodo global habit data. So as you can see from the spider charts, different countries have different Gen Z personas that are like high in percentages based on sample size. And the first persona I want to touch on are the invisibles. So as you can see, the percentages are quite high across all the different markets. So what exactly are the invisibles? Basically, they are caution explorers. They accept the world as it is, and you can, from outsiders' perspective, they look like they are just coasting through lives without much thinking of their own. But they are actually in the preliminary stage whereby they are still discovering their identities in the world of chaos. And then, right, when some of them leave the invisible Gen Z personas, they might move into one of the 6 remaining Gen Z personas. So we broadly categorize them into 2 sides. The left-hand side would be the laid-back and social orientation personas, such as my family, my world, stable roots, etc. On the right-hand side, we have upward ambition and self-orientation. So personas that exhibit these traits to different degrees are hungry climbers and my life, my way. And here are some of the countries we have identified for Gen Z personas that exhibit the traits of upward ambition and self-orientation. So for example, for China, right, we see Gen Zs are dedicated to climb social ladders so that they can enjoy life later. In the case of Vietnam, 62% answer that money is a symbol of success, which gives them motivation to work hard to accumulate money. Singapore, many of the Gen Zs, right, prefer a very comfortable and affluent life. In Thailand, it's a little bit different because rather than pursuing wealth, right, about half of the Gen Zers actually prefer to live life on their own terms. And on the flip side, we have these countries, Gen Zs in these countries that exhibit traits of laid-back and social orientation, such as Malaysia, Philippines, and Singapore appears again because in recent trends, right, we see an emerging trend of new Gen Zers preferring to enjoy the current moment, prioritizing human relationships rather than climbing up further, since their lives are already comfortable. And for Indonesia, we see about half of them prefer stable, simple lives, probably due to religious reason. Now, country deep dive.
Yeah, due to the time limit, I will quickly sum up the methodology as a demonstration. So, for example, I mentioned earlier the intergenerational perspective and also from the environment point of view to analyze a generation. For example, in China, the macro environment for the Gen Y, which is Gen Z's parents. Gen Y is the first middle class. Actually, it was enjoyed by the booming of Chinese economy. So they climbed the social ladder and through their hard working and study. But for the Gen Z, they grew up in a very comfortable environment with a high starting point, high self-expectation. But in the meso part, the social ladder is no longer available to climb. So interestingly, for Gen Y, their ambition is to change their status, to climb up. But for Gen Z, they are already in the middle, or their effort is to avoid themselves to fall down. So what they worry the most is what their parents accumulated and then, for in their generation, which there is a book in Japan, is very popular, called Underworld or Downward. It's talking about the middle class fall into the base class. So that with this, bear this in mind, then you can very easily understand why Chinese is here right now. So later we demo Vietnam case. So hungry climbers still 25%, but this is a bit different from Vietnam, even in the same term. Because in China, the climber is no longer just the status and the money accumulation. They're more about to maintain a middle class lifestyle, right? And they want to demonstrate their taste and the meaning of life rather than just the money and a symbol of success. So for the self-expression as well, even they have a limited budget, but still spend a lot of money on concert rather than our generation on luxury goods, right? So that's the difference. And also for family and stability, this generation, they want a really selected good quality for whole family. That's why members club now is booming in China, which is a middle class lifestyle supermarket in America. So before was not successful, but now it's very successful. So that's how we understand this generation. And here we demo Vietnam version.
Yep. So right, applying the same framework to Vietnam, we can see some pretty interesting differences compared to China. So for example, the macro-social, Gen Z is the generation that grew up being used to a globalized and digital world. So because they grew up in the era that happens after the Doi Moi economic reforms. As for meso-social, right now the world is open. So to them, society is like a level or relatively fair competition ground. And they believe that as long as you work hard, you'll be rewarded. So this could explain why some of the Gen Zs aspire to climb social ladder and have strong interest in entrepreneurship. And lastly, micro-social, we see that Gen Zs, they actually value family relationships and they are their support when they are facing setbacks or tired from hustling. And over here, we also prepared the top 3 Gen Z personas of Vietnam. So Hungry Climbers is the most significant, followed by My Life, My Way, and My Family, My World. So Hungry Climbers is to them, climbing a social ladder because money is like a status symbol. My Life, My Way are basically those that are somewhat moderate when it comes to social aspirations, but at the same time, they want to live life not being swayed by societal norms. My family and my work, for them, family takes priority, and even if they work hard, it's probably for their family. And we can see the purchase attitudes from there.
So because of the time, I think we just quickly show the sum up. So for this generation, don't communicate with them. This is not China or Vietnam. It's across the 7 countries in Asia. They don't like the father-like kind of tell me what to do, and don't like a repetitive brainwash advertisement, which are still quite prevalent in the market. And they like authentic stuff. They like sincere. They like humorous. They like immersive experience. So I probably won't have time to go through this and the AI part as well. Maybe you can quickly sum up.
Yeah. So I'll quickly summarize the AI part as part of our solutions when it comes to research consulting. So as I mentioned just now, GPT AI chatbot is part of our solution. The inputs are actually based on real-life data that we have just presented over here. And then, when you treat the chatbot, it can be like a consultant for brands. You ask it questions regarding consumers' lifestyles or marketing implications. It can give you deep, meaningful answers, like as you can see over here. At the same time, we also leverage on QAI, which is an ad evaluation tool. So let's say I use the China BYD Han television ad and run it through with the setting of analyzing from the perspective of Chinese Gen Z. These are the results. You have top 5 brand values. And you can even go frame by frame to understand why the AI detected certain frames to be associated with certain brand values. In this case, innovative, and that is because this specific frame shows the car owner using a smartphone and demonstrating a highly functional ecosystem.
Yeah, so to sum up, so the communication is very important to realize which generation, how to express to them. For example, in China, TOEFL, they are talking about how striving towards success through a grand narrative. And while we work for EOS, and then we basically don't talk about the exam as very stressful exam, but actually an empowerment to your communication life skill to explore the world horizontally. So this one was very well received on the social media for the younger generation. We have the ROI here. And so today the takeaway is to have the context of which development stage of the country and what's the commonality in the regional, so we can develop a regional strategy based on a commonality, but the country implementation based on subtle differences. And also to have an intergenerational perspective to see how Gen Z differ or common from previous generation, to have a continuity research perspective towards them, the value will appear along the years. So thank you very much. Thank you for the time.